Tonight, Bat-Mite has figured out that Hawkman's problem with irrelevance stems from his hairy chest. Midnighter gives new definition to the term unshakable moral compass, and I cannot overstate the number of comics that came out this week that have a central theme of all cops are bad. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 200 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and you heard that right, 200 episodes. Technically, from a complete standpoint, I did have an episode 0, so this is really episode 201, but that episode was like 20 minutes long. It doesn't count. 200! We did it! Hooray! I will do nothing special. I really did consider doing anything to give this episode any sort of extra panache to say, yes, we made it. We made it to 200. We're in the final stretch. The finish line is in sight. We have managed to hit this point. But then I realized the best reward I could possibly give myself is keeping this episode mercifully brief. So I only got 10 comics to talk about. I don't have any extra sneak peeks or anything like that to throw on it. None of them are double-length issues. It's just a nice, quiet week. And I gotta tell you, I've missed it. God, I've missed it so. Honestly, this whole month is pretty quiet. The max amount of comics we have at any point is 13. Unless you count 5 annuals and 2 regular ones to be more than 13 regular comics. I don't think it is. Annuals are like a 1.5 sort of deal. So yeah, no, it's a very quiet week. I am looking forward to that. Plus, honestly, not a bad week in comics. So let me tell you what we got coming out here. In no particular order, actually, technically, in alphabetical order. We have Action Comics, Bat-Mite, Batman Beyond, Bizarro, Detective Comics, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Lobo, Midnighter, and the Omega Men. So, for anyone who knows me personally or listened to the Issue 1 review, I love Omega Men. It's fantastic. Honestly, Action Comics and Green Arrow are doing some pretty great stuff as well. Didn't really hate Green Lantern and Midnighter either. It's just a solid week in comics. So, I don't know if I should really try to stretch this intro out of like, let's take a look back at all the things we did and be all navel-gazy about what does it mean to hit 200? Or should I just say, here's the comics. Here's the comics. Action Comics number 42, written by Greg Pak, art by Aaron Kuder. So last issue we had Superman going off to fight against a big shadow monster, and that left the small little neighborhood that have devoted themselves to Superman liable to be attacked by a bunch of cops. So we open up with that, where the cops are coming down on this neighborhood, and we see the neighborhood representative, Lee Lambert, is like, hey, we didn't do anything. What's going on? And the cops say, unlawful assembly, you got 5 minutes. And they're just like, hey, look, we're chill. We don't have to do this. Like, what's going on? And then everyone's wondering where Superman went to. We see him off punching giant shadow monsters in the face. As he's being thrown about a little bit, all the firefighters who were there at the area are like, is he going to be okay? And it's like, yeah, it was Superman, right? No problem. And then Superman's like, oh my God, this hurts so much. I have lessened my powers. I'm still stronger than pretty much anyone else on Earth, but like, Jesus Christ, this hurts so much. And he ends up landing next to one of the firefighters' radios, which says how the one cop of Binghamton is marching on Kentville, that little neighborhood. And everyone's like, is he authorized to do this? What's going on? And Superman's like, okay, I got to wrap this up quick now. I got to go deal with that. So we see the big shadow monster manages to come at him. And Superman's like, look, straight up, who sent you? What's going on? And are you sentient? And the monster just roars. And he's like, cool. That gives me free reign. So he picks up the steel girder in the area, and he's like, I know this thing is not sentient, so therefore I don't feel bad about doing this. And he stabs it through the eye with the girder, and then gets a big I guess because it's the dockyard, a anchor chain, and starts wrapping it around the monster. And as he hops on, he's like, I don't know if I'm going to be strong enough to deal with this. And also, I am scared. Like, this is actual fear I'm feeling here. But he manages to wrap the anchor chain around the monster and starts riding it. And he compares it to riding a bull back during the rodeos of the Smallville 4-H fair. And he's like, yeah, but the bulls back then didn't have giant tendril zombie arms coming off of it. And it turns out that he enraged the monster in the direction of a gas truck, and his goal is to make it explode. But right before he's about to collide, Superman's like, oh, right, I'm not invulnerable. And then it explodes, and he goes up flying in the air. And as he's screaming out, he's like, oh, it almost feels like flying again. So we cut back over to Kentville, and we see Binghamton's like, all right, fire the tear gas. And they're like, bro, it's only been like 1 minute. You said 5. And he's like, no, we've given them weeks, and they have not dispersed. So yeah, we all know what's happening now. And Lambert's just like, no one's here to fight. And Jimmy's just clicking pictures in the background until one guy accidentally fires off a tear grenade. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, it just slipped or whatever. But it goes flying towards the crowd. And up steps this guy named Dante, who has just all the drip. He's got a baseball bat, and he just boonk right back at the police. And Lambert's like, what are you doing, man? And he's just like, hey, what, you just wanted it to hit us? And yeah, sure, I hit it back there, but I mean, I'm not going to let them trash our block. And the moment he lands down, Binghamton's like, awesome. So that's resisting arrest, that's assaulting an officer, and unlawful deployment of chemical weapons. Everyone move in. And Lambert starts freaking out. She yells back to the crowd, hey, everyone, sit down. They can't do anything if we are not resisting. Just sit down, and we will show them that we're peaceful. And everyone follows suit except for Dante, and he's like, I'm not going to sit. I'm not a dog. And he's like, you're going to sit or else you're going to kick your ass. So get down there. So he ends up sitting down, and everyone just chills. And police start unfurling their batons. They got the SWAT shields coming up. And Lambert's like, it's going to be okay. Just nobody react, nobody do anything. They can't get us if we're not doing anything. And the cops just start marching up anyway, and Dante's like, we're like fish in a barrel here. So he stands up again, and he's like, the hell with this. You got no right to march on us. And he picks up his baseball bat again. He's ready to go. And Lambert basically says, like, look, if you fight, people are gonna die. Is that what you want? And Dante's just like, you need to wake up, because people are gonna die regardless. But before anything can get done, all of a sudden an anchor just shoots across the street, blocking the police from moving any further. And we see Superman stepping up. You only get shots of like his chest and his feet. And he's just like, all right, I want everyone to listen up. First and foremost, Officer Mizoguchi, I saved you from Brainiac twice. You, the entire 18th precinct, I remember I was there for you when the city was under attack. And he turns to Dante, and he's like, Dante, I rushed you to the hospital in 2 seconds after a drunk driver accidentally caused your jugular to get nicked. So you remember that. I am on the side of all of you here. You got to understand that. And Dante sits back down, and Superman thinks to himself, like, I am so tired. I can barely do this, but, like, I have to do it for them. I have to stand with them. And so he holds up the anchor chains, and he stops the police from moving forward to the peaceful crowd. And up steps Binghamton, and he's just like, all right, you've got 1 second to get out of here. And Superman's like, why are you... And then he counts 1. And he's like, okay, we got that out of our system. Why? And Binghamton says, I'm tired after cleaning up after all your fights, and I'm tired of hearing the words Brainiac and Zod and all that stuff. I'm tired of Superman meaning more than all the rest of the police that are actually dying out here. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen here. We're going to come out here, and we're going to beat the ever-loving snot out of you, and you will fight back. And when you do, then we have the right to take out this entire street and every moron that ever stood behind you. And we see he pulls out a SWAT team that has some special armor that I guess allows them to beat down harder. And Superman says, look, we're all fighting for this city. I'm not gonna... And then they just start unloading on him. And you hear crack noises and all this stuff. And Jimmy's like, we can't just sit here. And Lambert's like, I mean, he's Superman. This is what he would want. And he keeps on taking the hits. Eventually, Binghamton starts getting fed up. He picks up the tear gas grenade from the guy who had it before. And as Superman continues to get beat, Binghamton tells everyone to put on their masks, and he fires tear gas grenade out into the group. Dante, of course, bats one of them back, but there's a bunch of them coming in, so everyone starts coughing. No one knows what's going on. It's absolute chaos immediately, and we see Superman still taking the beatings, but one of the SWAT officers come over to attack Dante. Lambert jumps in the way. Jimmy's taking pictures of all this. One of the cops says, hey, that's not cool, you just hit a civilian, and then he gets elbowed in the face by the SWAT officer. A kid's crying for his daddy in the middle of the street, and in the middle of it all, we see Superman says, all right, that's enough. I will not stand for this anymore. And we see all the chains suddenly get lifted up, dropped off to the side, and Binghamton just says, finally, as Superman comes in and punches him in the face. So that's the issue. I really liked it. There's something for when Superman is at this street level, for when he is fighting for the oppressed, and not like in the general sense of like, oh, he's making everyone's lives better because he's Superman, and he does it on such a large scale that like it doesn't matter. I like this aspect where Superman has this extremely small neighborhood that, yes, they're devoted to him, but I don't think it would matter one way or the other, and it's just peaceful protesting versus some violent cops. Like, yes, this is a great issue. I love the way that Superman is doing this here. Obviously, there's some sort of meta thing going on in the back because of all the shadow beasts or whatever, but I don't think that detracts from the underlying message of Superman is here to fight for the lesser man. So, yeah. The only small little criticisms, art is great, but there is one word balloon that is misattributed to Clark when it's meant for Binghamton, which comes off as really weird because it's all of a sudden Clark is just like saying like, oh, I'm here to fight for these people, and he's just like, you suck so much, I hate you. It's like, oh, okay, don't think that's in character, but you know, little tiny things like that barely matter, especially when you can easily recognize it as an error. So I'm going to say this is honestly, I kind of want to say an 8.5. Like, I feel like there's still room for improvement to get it up to that 9, but like, I just really like the way that Greg Pak is doing his Superman here. So I hope to see us continue down this path of this idealistic Superman a lot more than just the heroic aspect of it. And yeah, I like it. Midnighter number 2, written by Steve Orlando, art by Alec Morgan. So last issue, a whole lot of just setup on Midnighter and how he's single now, but mostly the end revealed that the God Garden has been invaded and a bunch of the tech was taken and is now just out there in the world. So we open up with a family, husband and wife pair, and it turns out that the husband died. His name was Pat, and the wife was named Marina. And Marina, in her grief, is contacted by this voice, basically saying he's dead, he's not coming back, and his death was completely preventable. The Windcrest Foods is a company that made the food that your husband's allergy reacted to, and they knew it was an allergen in the food, and they didn't do anything to stop it. I am giving you the ability and the power to get them punished. Corporations are people. I can help you hurt those people. And we see that she is given some sort of weird face hugger looking thing, but around her chest. And we move on over to Midnighter, who is currently at a pool hall playing against some other guy. And the other guy's just like, hey, look, I know your power's set. Why are you letting me have all of these sinks? Like, what are you doing here? Why am I allowed to pocket anything? And he's like, oh, well, I am donating a number of shots to you to help your masculinity. He's like, yeah, all right. How's your single life been going? He's like, good. I mean, I've got this one guy who we're taking it a bit slow with. Apparently, I'm a friend. And just like, yeah, all right, well, we'll see how long that lasts. And then Midnighter just like sinks every single ball and then gets a call from Asset 319, who is reporting something is going on. So we cut back over to Oakland, which is where Marina is, and she is inside the Windcrest building and is just saying 44 people are dead, because that was the number of people totally killed by the allergen thing. It says Patrick Lucas was one of them, and all of you've have to suffer. You all are complicit. And he says that the 6 killing sounds, and it turns out that these sounds allow various different injuries in anyone who hears them, and she's just saying them around these security guards that are trying to take her out, and she just slowly makes her way up the building, just killing everyone in this company that she comes across. And as she goes up, one of the security guards is like, please, my lungs are on fire, you gotta help me, I just work here, and she's like, yeah, you do work here. You're a janitor. You have seen everything they've done. You've seen their whole building. There's only one way to stop. You give me where the board is. And she's like, oh, it's on the top floor. They're the top floor. So she continues to kick ass and kill people on the whole way up. They try to stop her from saying anything, but it doesn't work. She still manages to get out the words. And in getting up there, she is able to sense that Midnighter is approaching. She's like, oh, you're quiet, but not quiet enough. And she says all 6 of the killing words at Midnighter, and he goes down. He's like, okay, I'm giving you that one. That was creative. It was fun. I didn't think I'd have to bring out the good silverware for this. And then she says another word, and it just blasts him back. He falls back onto the ground unconscious. And she's like, you think this is fun? This was never fun for me. So she goes up into the boardroom. There's only 3 guys up there that she's taken hostage, and she's like, all right, so this is the 9th circle of hell. It sucks there are only 3 of you, because you knew that a small portion of the population would be affected by what you did, what you chose to do, and you still decided to do it. Tell me, how much is a human life worth? Because I can tell you right now, I got 44 lives that I am going to atone for, and 3 of them, your 3 lives, you're going to have to make it work. So Midnighter gets up and he's like, all right, well, killing sounds, that's a thing. Guess I'm going to have to deal with that. And so he takes his hand and smashes him against the side of his head, deafening himself. And you see just this horrific bloody mess on the side. And as he makes his way up the stairs, he starts, he knows he can't go in through just the normal door, so he gets up to the roof. He then rappels down off the side of the roof, and right before Marina is about to kill these guys, he kicks in the window and knocks her out. So, cut to Moscow the next day. We see that he's on a date with the guy that he rescued last issue from the, I don't even know what they were, if I'm being honest. There's the guys attacking the terrorists with the rage guns. That's what they were. So he's just like, oh yeah, I love Moscow. And he's like, yeah, well, this is my city. This is where I was raised. And you just brought me here in a magic door. And you saved me. You brought me here. And you can pull off head to toe black. I mean, you are the ideal date. And then a bunch of guys come up and they say, hey, this is a man's bar. We don't let you frilly little girls in here. And Midnighter's like, oh, okay, excuse me. And he just grabs the guy by the nostrils and slams him through a table. And the other guy, again, I feel like he has a name somewhere in here, but I, honest to God, cannot find it. They go outside and he's just like, so, what are you working on nowadays? And Midnighter's like, oh, well, the place I used to work got raided and there's some bad tech out there, so I got to go clean that up. For instance, Marina, the girl I was seeing yesterday, what happened with her? And we see the fallout. Marina's down on the ground and she starts saying the killing words again, and she's just like, oops, I can read your lips. I know what you're trying to say, but it doesn't work if I can't hear you, and I've deafened myself. And Marina's like, no, you don't understand. This isn't how they took him. They destroyed my life, and they don't even care. And as Marina's down on the ground, completely saying, like, she gave up, the guys that she was going to kill, the CEOs, come up just being like, oh, thank God you're here, sir. This woman is quite unwell. Shouldn't we restrain her or something? We at Wildcrest cannot thank you enough. And Midnighter takes his hand just being like, oh, I wouldn't be thanking me for too long. And he cracks his hand and breaks his elbow. And you just see a multi-panel thing of him just beating them up off panel while Marina just watches on in first shock and then just a smile on her face as Midnighter's like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to request that she gets the lightest sentence possible. Yes, she will serve some time for her crimes, but then she's going to get out. And you are then going to make it right for everyone else. You are going to publicly accept responsibility for causing the event. You are going to cover the medical bills for everyone that she hurt downstairs and everyone that you hurt separately for that. And if you don't do all of this without question, I will bring her back. And you see that she's led away by the cops, but she seems to be okay with that situation. So the guy he's talking to is just like, and they just went along with that. And he's like, yeah, they usually do after the threatening. He's just like, oh, cool. So he wants to take his mind off crime for a minute. They go down to some market that's in Moscow. And he's just like, oh, yeah, this is my ex's favorite place. Andrew, don't worry about it. Let's not talk about Andrew. So they make their way over to a shish kebab place. And he's just like, oh, yeah, this was Andrew's. Yeah, okay, that's Andrew's. And so the other guy's just like, look, you talk about Andrew a lot. That's fine. It makes sense. He was your first and he's still alive. It's not like he died or anything. But how about this? All the places that remind you of Andrew, you and I, we can just own them. It's called a hostile takeover. We're going to make them ours now, okay? Because I have loved every minute of being with you here and I would love to continue working on it because I'm amazed by Midnighter, and anyone who doesn't see that is an idiot. And Midnighter's just like, it can lose its luster. So we cut to Midnighter and Apollo, and apparently Apollo's angry. He's Andrew, by the way. And he's just like, what do you mean Lucas Trent doesn't exist? And that's Midnighter's alter ego, but it turns out that Midnighter just made him up. He doesn't remember anything about his childhood. He knows nothing about his life beforehand. And he's like, those were all taken from me. I don't have any of that stuff. But I wanted to appear more normal to you. I wanted to be more like you. I'm not a person. And Apollo's appalled by this because at this point he's still working with the gardener in the God Garden. It is still an issue that he is doing all the stuff with the person who robbed him of his childhood. And he's just like, and you're just going to keep on working with her? You're going to keep doing that? And just like, hey, you deserve a better life. I don't know what more to tell you. And he's just like, and you have no problem deceiving me like that. It's all just, you're going to end up just like her. And the ends always justify the means. And we see a little alert goes off in Midnighter's head, and he gives Apollo a kiss. And Apollo's like, wait, hold on, where are you going? And he's like, you know how it is with me. I always see how it ends. So we then cut over to Massachusetts, where Marina's being held in jail, and she's apparently been made an asset as well. Contacts Midnighter. And just like, all right, you were literally the only option I have for conversation in here. So what's up? And he's just like, oh, you did the right thing, but you did it the wrong way. And I respect you. I respect what you were doing. When you get out of jail, I will welcome you as a peer. And he's just like, yeah, okay, great. Anyway, so apparently Midnighter just wants to talk to her while he's off doing some crime beating. He's going to find some human traffickers and just like, all right, well, fair enough. But Midnighter's also asking questions about who was the guy who gave you the weapon, the killing words. Who was the guy who did? And she's like, oh, I couldn't even see his face. I don't know what to do. And he's like, oh, that's just a hypnos thing. Read Grayson to find out about that. But it's totally overcomable. However, as Midnighter approaches the bottom of the subway thing for the human traffickers, he laughs. He's like, oh, incredible. I didn't even know what my birthday was, but it must be today. And Marina's like, what? Am I keeping you from something? He's like, no, not at all. I'm just going to have some fun. And we see that I believe it's multiplex. If not, it's multiple different clones all dressed in identical clothing of what seems to be, some sort of like Tron looking suit. So yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. And I don't think the last issue really got me hooked enough, but bringing on this different thing of showing how I hesitate to say chaotic good, but I guess that is the proper term for it. The chaotic good of Midnighter, where he is absolutely for the idea of the greater good, the idea of helping out people, and if they have been harmed, punishing the people who harmed them. He has no problem with seeing that Marina belongs in jail because she harmed innocent people that were literally knew nothing about the stuff going on. But he also punishes the CEOs because they did wrong as well. I like that as a concept. And then, yeah, all the stuff with the Apollo. I don't know enough about the Midnighter-Apollo relationship to speak to it in depth, but I think having this long-term lie and then still working with someone who basically ruined your life, I mean, that's grounds for breaking up. I can fully see that being a reasonable thing. So overall, I'm down for this. I think I'm going to give it I'll say 7.5. It's a high 7.5. I'm still waiting for something a little bit extra to take this into 8 territory, but it's getting there. And I think if we continue down this path, I can wholly see it getting there. So, cool. Detective Comics number 42, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Fernando Blanco. So, last issue we had Batman going up against, and Batman being Jim Gordon, against some random group of guys and getting blown back by a rocket launcher. And also the theory, proven fact, I don't know where we're standing at yet, that Bullock's partner in more ways than one, Yips, is secretly a traitor and is doing some bad stuff. So as Batman is coming out of being hit by a rocket launcher, he's like, yeah, being Batman was a stupid idea. I don't know why I did this. But Bullock shows up on the rooftop. He starts taking shots at the culprits. They start firing back and he has to take cover. And as Batman comes down, Montoya's like, hey, don't worry, air support's coming. And he's like, I'm fine, just keep cover, Montoya. And then all of a sudden a sniper shoots out Batman's knees. And he's like, all right, I can't walk now. So, you might want to leave. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. You get out of here. We'll keep you covered. And they start firing up at the rooftop. And as the sniper is about to fire off something else, Batman turns on two headlights out of his chest, which blind the guy just enough for an arrow to miss and be lodged in a car nearby. So immediately the guys are like, all right, abort, we got to bail, this isn't going according to plan. So they take off. In a reminder, one of the guys was taken out. He was stopped by Batman. So they look at all the evidence after the fact and they're like, all right, we got nothing on these guys, but we do have one of their men. Once he wakes up, we'll get more information. They see him being wheeled away and he does not look good. And they're like, if he wakes up, Jesus. And then we see there's an arrow that they say, oh, it was probably electrified, and when it hit you, it would have scrambled your suit. So don't get hit by that. So at that point, Gordon's out of the robot suit. He's just in his normal gear, and he's like, all right, thanks for all your help, detectives. Keep me updated. And then Bullock and Montoya take a look as the robot suit's being lifted back up to the blimp, and they're like, this is weird. This is really weird. I don't know. Why did you even come back here, Montoya? Why are you back in Gotham? She's like, I just missed your pretty face. And he's like, really? And she's like, no, you don't stand a chance, buddy. So they cut back to the police precinct, and everyone's talking about that circus, the Cirque du Soleil that's coming into town. And apparently every single cop that they can spare is going to be called in to do a dry run drill the night before to work on evacuations and weak points and stuff like that. And they got a whole map of the seating chart and saying, all right, here's where everyone's going to be sitting. We're going to be running this through. And we see Alvarez from the Catwoman books is like, hey, what about major crimes? I got a missing person. I need to be working on that. And Sawyer's like, that person's been missing for weeks already. Why, you want to hop on it now just because I need you for something else? Shut up. Yeah, just 72 hours, you're all going to be working on this. And we see somebody, almost certainly Yips, is taking a picture of the screen and sending it to somebody. So they said, the rest of the cops are like, hey, is Batman going to be there? That joke, that guy who just got busted by like some nobodies on a rooftop. And Bullock gets all pissed off and storms out of the room. Montoya follows and is just like, hey, look, I mean, this is all the same as it's ever been, right? But like, there seems like there's more of a divide in the department. And Bullock's just like, oh, there's always been a divide between the straight cops and the crooked cops. It's how it's always been. And Montoya's like, and you're okay with that? And he's like, what does it matter if I'm okay with it? And she's just like, I don't know. What about everyone else? And basically, she keeps on prying. She keeps on pushing a little bit deeper about like, how you feeling about this? How you feeling about people coming after Batman like that? And how you feeling about, maybe not everyone's on the up and up. And he's just like, I don't know what you're getting at, but you're seeming a lot like a snitch. So Yips and Bullock return back to his apartment. Or sorry, Yip. I've been calling her Yips. I don't know if that's a nickname I picked up, but Yip is her name. So they get back and he's kind of confessing like, yeah, I don't know what's Montoya's deal. It might be an internal affairs thing. I don't know. Everything's all messed up nowadays. And she's like, well, what do you want? What does she want with you? And she's like, I don't know. I have no idea. She knows that I'm not going to do anything. She knows that I'm not crooked, so I don't know. But they get back to Bullock's apartment, and it seems like Yip may leave or is just like stepping in. It's hard to tell. But she's like, oh, well, maybe you're not the one she's after at all. So we cut over to the hospital where Montoya's asking, like, hey, is the guy going to wake up? Are we going to get answers from him? And Doc's just like, probably not. he's lucky not to be dead. We honestly have nothing on this at all. Like, he's a miracle he's even alive now. And we cut to another rooftop that the gang is looking on saying, hey, we got to get justice for our guy here. And one of the guys is like, nope, we have a job to do. The job comes first. We are La Morte. That's their name. So Bullock's lying awake in bed. Yip's in next to him. And all of a sudden he gets a call on his phone from the boss man. It's Gordon saying, hey, you up? And Bullock looks over at Yip's phone and it says 11 missed calls from this number. And Bullock's like, yeah, I'll be right out. So Gordon's just standing out on the stoop. Bullock comes out in his underwear and trench coat and hands him a beer and just like, you want one? And he's like, no, I better not. Still technically on call. And they just kind of talk for a minute, just as, peers. And Gordon's like, yeah, I'm kind of the joke of the department, aren't I? And he's like, yeah, you are. But like, sometimes you win some, you lose some. You just got to get back on the horse and keep trying. And Gordon's like, who doesn't have time for a learning curve? Batman. So Bullock takes a sip and Gordon's like, so you're with Yip, huh? And he's like, yeah, something like that. And he's like, do you trust her? And he's like, I don't trust anybody but you. And it's like, oh, you mean Batman? It's like, yeah, whatever. So at that point he gets a call and Bullock's like, all right, I'm right behind you. And we see that the rest of the team has been assembled, everyone's together, but they're not going to do anything yet. And Yip is upset about that, just like, what do you mean we're just going to be sitting here? And Montoya says, yeah, that's our job. If we are called for backup, we will go back up, but we don't do anything else in the meantime because we got to let the Batman do his thing. So Yip goes off to take a call. Montoya's like, she takes a lot of calls. You don't think that's weird? And Bullock's like, yeah, I don't know. Hey, here's a number. And it's the same number from Yip's phone last night. Here's a number. Check it. See if it's on the up and up. Give me a full rundown on it. And she's like, okay, where'd you get it from? And he's like, I'm going to go get a donut. So we cut over to Gordon. He's hanging upside down from the blimp. And they're following La Morte. And they're tracking him. And it's just like, hey, I think these guys can see us coming because they're running away from the blimp. So at that point, they deploy Batman. He lands on the rooftop with them. They're all standing on top of water towers. And they're just like, all right, you've caused some trouble in my town. Which one of you guys are going to give yourselves up or get their ass handed to them? And they're like, we have a better idea. And they all press detonators, and all 3 water towers blow up at once, which go and flood the bat suit. And they see it's an ambush. They're calling for backup. So immediately they're jumping in the car, starting driving. But the water can't penetrate the suit. It's airtight. So it's like, all right, they would know that. They must be planning something else. And they throw a taser into the water, which fries the bat suit, causing him to go over the edge of a building, and the suit's now offline. So La Morte jumps down. They're ready to do something. Bullock is telling Yip, like, drive faster. What the hell's wrong with you? Let's go. And he's just like, all right. But Bullock goes over. He's like, hey, Jim, I don't know if you can even hear me, but you're outnumbered. Do not get out of the suit. To which we see Jim getting out of the robot suit saying, all right, sorry, Harvey. You guys want a street fight? Let's go. So yeah, I like it more than last issue. Last issue had a lot of promise, and I feel like this one delivered. Because last issue, I felt like it was all set up for the arc. We were doing the stuff of like, oh, is Yip actually corrupt? Like, what's all going on there? How are we going to deal with it? But this one I like more because it solidifies Montoya may be on the opposite side of like internal affairs, like trying to root out crooked cops. Yip is a crooked cop by all means, and then Bullock is stuck here in the middle between what he thinks is right and wanting to look out for his own. And it's a hard line to draw there, and I like that Gordon as Batman is not so much a character that is here, it's just kind of a consequence. It's just kind of a thing where it's, yeah, no, he's around, but he's not, like, Batman's not the focus of the story, I guess is the long and short of it. So, no, I really do like this one. I think it's got a lot of promise. My only critique is La Morte is kind of just a dumb team. It's I would rather have something with a bit more menace or threatening to it. You could even go like a street gang. It just give it more realism. But having these guys jumping around wearing like crossbones and stuff like that, it feels a little cheap. So my only criticism, but overall I am liking this one. So I think I'm going to give it an 8, and we'll see if we can keep that upward trend as we move on. Lobo number 8, written by Cullen, Bunn, art by Cliff Richards. So last issue we have Lobo taking on the assignment of being an enforcer for a group called, I believe it's the Void Whisper. And as he discovers something about a snitch or whatever, he gets attacked by a group of various different aliens. I believe it was a Thanagarian, a Martian, and a Daemonite. So Lobo's fighting against them. It's honestly, there's like 7 straight pages of fight here. It's hard for me to say anything besides, and then they fought, but I will do my best. The Martian comes in first, starts shape-shifting out this huge, long snake head. Lobo just cuts it off. Meanwhile, the Daemonite comes in. He's able to dodge around it. And by the way, maybe this is just me being ignorant of Daemonites in the larger Wildstorm universe, but there were a lot of Daemonites in early New 52. This thing doesn't look a damn thing like any of them. But regardless, he dodges over that just for the Thanagarian to come in and attack. And he knocks off the Hawk person's helmet, and they see that there's this bug inside of the skin. And they said it last issue where apparently the bug that was in the snitch that popped out through his eye socket is a mind control bug. And clearly there is one underneath of Hawkman's skin as well, and probably the other two. And Lobo's like, well, then these guys aren't like actually fighting. They're just under mind control, and like they don't actually have any part in this. I should feel bad for killing innocent people, but I don't. And so he just continues. We see the head of the severed Martian sprouts tentacles and starts attacking him with like prickly thorns. Lobo shoots some of them, but then the body is also still under mind control. So he blows apart the body, but that gives the tentacles enough time to push in through the back of Lobo's skull and pop out one of his eyes, and also holds him in place long enough for the Daemonite to attack. So Lobo at that point is just like, all right, I've had enough. And with a single punch, he just eviscerates the Daemonite's head. And he turns over to the other two and says, like, I think I destroyed the bug, and I'm willing to do the same for you guys if you come any closer. And then all of a sudden, the windows behind them start exploding, shots come in and just immediately kill the Martian and the Thanagarian. And Lobo looks out the window and he's like, what the hell is that? And we see this purple dude with a ponytail standing up on a rooftop with a bow and arrow. Well, a bow at least. I'm sure they were energy blasts. And Lobo's like, I don't know this guy. I have no idea what he's doing, but I have a feeling that if I tried to go up and try to like catch him, he'd be gone before I got there. And for now, I got to focus on my job. So purple guy will show up later. At this point, he's like, all right, now I need to figure out who's making these brain bugs, because they're the ones who clearly have something against the Void Whisper. So Lobo goes to, quote, the mechanic, who apparently is someone Lobo's friendly with, as long as he can pay every once in a while. And the mechanic's just like, oh yeah, no, this is some nasty tech, but I love it. It looks great. It's totally awesome. But it's a shame he had to destroy it so horribly. I would love to get my hands on an actual one of these. And Lobo's like, yeah, can you trace it? And he's like, of course I can trace it. What do you take me for? Some rank amateur? How dare you? So he says, yeah, I'll waive my usual fees of all this stuff if you can, whenever you get to the source of these, bring me back a few. Like, I could make some cool weapons out of this. I could make a knife that would render the stabby, or the stabby suggestion oriented. You'd be able to control them just by stabbing them. Or maybe I'll just leave it as a bug, because it's also cool tech. So turns out Lobo's now flying to the planet Cyorus. And they're saying, oh, this planet's invitation only. Where's your invite? And he's like, it's right here. And he sends some invite codes over. Turns out Mechanic also just made an automatic invite thing once they pegged down what planet it was from. And as they show up, it's an extremely rich planet. Not like cities and stuff, but just like walled gardens. And we see Lobo comes up to a waitress that offers him a drink, and he's like, how would I go about meeting the Countess Odessa? And just like, she doesn't really take visitors, and I mean, you're cute and all, but I don't think she wants you as a consort either. And he's like, well, at least let me have a chance. And she kind of nods her head over in one direction. So Lobo makes his way over to this big fortress-looking castle thing, and as he gets to the front, there's some guards, and Lobo just rips their heads off, literally tears the head off of their spines, and beats each other with it. So as he makes his way in, he's like, all right, outside it looks like a party palace, but inside it's like a hospital in here. And there's all these vats filled with the mind control bugs. And he's like, all right, well, I mean, this is clearly the place I need to be. I just need to find the person behind. And then speaking almost immediately is Countess Odessa, who's got a whole bunch of aliens in tow, all of them clearly mind-controlled, and just like, hello, I am the Countess Fabrizia Odessa, but you can call me Fab, or my friends can, but we're not friends, so who the hell are you and why are you in my house? And he's just like, yeah, look, I found this brain bug, and it looks like you got enough of them built here in order to control anybody you want. But I noticed there's no manufacturing plants around here, so where do you keep them built? Like, where does that happen? And she's like, oh, you think I build these brain bugs? Nah, they're born. And we get a cut to her back in an open back dress where they just start popping out of her skin. And it's horrifying. And Lobo's like, all right, well, that's enough for me. Now that I know where they come from, I could take this out. And he just gets 2 knives out, goes and attacks him. And then all of a sudden he gets zapped and he just falls down to the floor. And she's, a bunch of the other people are about to attack. And he's like, no. He's quite harmless now. And Lobo's like, what's up? I can't move my body. Oh, God, I have a brain bug in me, don't I? And we see it crawling up into his face. And she's like, yep. Now, what am I going to do with you? I mean, I'm sure you'll be a valuable member of the organization here, but I'm having trouble deciding because there are so many things I could put you to work on. And that's the issue. It's good. I mean, it's a fine issue. I don't really have any problems with it. It's not blowing me back either. It's just another issue, kind of what I expect. I don't know how better to describe it. Like, I don't feel like a whole lot of forward motion happened here. And I also don't feel like there were that many twists either. The last issue set up like, oh, there was a bug in that guy's body. This one set it up as mind control. The purple guy showing up, it's good setup, but I'm sure we're going to probably get that reveal next issue, considering that he's on the cover of the next issue. I don't know. Lobo has never been one for being a thinky man's book. It's much more focused on the action and the here and now, and that's fine. There's a place for that. It just kind of leads it to most basic common denominator comics, where it's like, yeah, that's what a superhero comic is, I guess. I'm gonna say 7. I'm gonna be charitable with the 7 though, because everything inside me says 6.5, but that just doesn't feel right. So I'm gonna say a 7, but just know that, like, I'm sure this is going to be some people's favorite comic, and I'm sure it's going to be some people's least favorite comic. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think I'm more on the it's okay side, but I'm nowhere near loving it. So yeah, I'll say 7. Green Arrow number 42, written by Benjamin Percy, art by Patrick Zircher. So last issue, we had a whole lot of stuff, but the primary focus is somebody is stealing people from the slum town, basically called Pennytown, and one guy who's albino or something is going around and is like attacking people with bleach. Also, Green Arrow rescued a big wolf thing from being killed. So we open up in the middle of Seattle, and we get the crazy, I think she was called the Wart Woman from last issues, talking about like, oh, the night birds, fear the night birds, they feast upon us or whatever. And this kid's listening like, Mommy, I'm scared. And Mommy's like, hey, she's crazy. Don't worry about her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And then as they say that, all of a sudden, a man who was kidnapped and doused with bleach last issue is dropped into the middle of town and right in front of this group. And they're like, oh my God, he's dead. And also, he smells like bleach. Why does he smell like bleach? So we see Emiko is sleeping in bed. She's woken up and she's like, Ollie, you out there? And she grabs a knife before she makes her way out to the main room. And there's Ollie with the wolf just bleeding on their futon. And it's just like, hey, I need your help. Add some pressure here while I suture up the wound. And they're like, why do we have a wolf? And Green Arrow's like, short story, I saved it from a dog fight. It's like, okay, what's the longer story? Somebody's murdering people out there and they got blood on their hands. So we see some news stories basically saying, the unofficial mayor of Pennytown, known as Big Dog, aka Willis Coleman, was found dead. And they interview a guy just like, people have been getting abducted like crazy, but now that it was dropped into the hoity-toity part of town, now all of a sudden you seem to care. So we cut over to police, and the police are like, look, people are dying. But more importantly, they're rioting and looting, and that will not stand. We have to get control of our city. And in steps this smarmy-looking dude, who I think was in the last issue as well, basically saying, hello, I'm here to give you the change of the... it's going to be big, and the international policing will change forever. Let me introduce the Panopticon. And out comes this War of the Worlds looking ass, disc on horrific looking Dr. Octopus legs. And it just starts making its way to the front of the room saying, all right, turns out in nature that predators have distinctive signs, like the rattlesnake and stuff like that. You can tell it's a predator just by looking at it. We theorize humans have tells as well. So we made a supercomputer, RoboCop, Ed 209 sort of thing that can read people for these predatory-like behaviors and stop them from being predators by any means necessary. And one of them was like, that sounds like profiling. I'm not sure that's a good idea. And they're like, it's exactly profiling. And don't worry, because if you're a good person, you have nothing to worry about. And on cue, the very next scene is some dude is ordering a burger and he's wanting extra sauce for it, when all of a sudden this girl, she looks hungry, she comes up, she steals the burger and runs down the street, and she makes her way into an alley, starts trying to enjoy the burger, and all of a sudden Panopticon shows up and straight up eviscerates her. She is dead. So we cut to, apparently Arrow now knows about it. And he's like, what does Panopticon even mean? It just seems like a Scrabble word. And Emiko's like, oh, it's based off a prison concept in the 18th century where you would have a circular prison and a guard tower in the middle with tinted windows. And none of the people in the cells would know at any given point if their cell was being watched. So therefore, they would always be on their best behavior. And we see, as she's describing this, you get jewel thieves, domestic abusers, and meth labs all busted up by Panopticon. And Emiko calls out Oliver because it's like, you should know that your company is the one that funded him. And so Oliver calls up whatever the guy's name is, the current acting CEO guy, and he's just like, I'm sorry, Oliver. And mind you, he's feeding a tarantula at this point with like a small little bug. He's horrific. But he's like, oh, I'm sorry, you signed the contract. And Oliver's like, this is all the ists. It's classist, it's racist, it's horrible. Why are we even doing this? What? So someone steals a hamburger. What about the CEOs who are running off with these bonuses and stealing millions in securities frauds? What about them? And he's like, yeah, what about the CEO who's not paying attention to what happens in their country or company? Oliver. And so he says, look, either you're going to have to step up and take responsibility for the stuff that you're signing, or you're going to have to step down. Pick an option. So we see Emiko and Oliver go down to the Arrow Cave, and he's like, look, I got to go to Tacoma. That's where the assembly line for the Panopticon is located. I can get some answers there. I can maybe shut it down, do something. You need to stay here, and I need you to reach Henry and see if he has any idea on that albino guy from before. Also, take care of my dog. And she's like, oh, it's your dog now? And he's like, yep, my dog, my city. So we see there are some protesters protesting at Panopticon, and out comes the albino guy walking the line right in front of the SWAT officers, and he's like, everyone who wants to live needs to leave now. And they're like, you can't make us shut up. We're here. We're the 99%. And he's just like, this is your last warning. Go home or be punished. And he's like, yeah, you and one army. And then a horde of Panopticons come descending from the skies, and he says, do you know what the powerless say? Nothing. So we cut over to Oliver as he's making his way over to Tacoma, and he basically gives this whole thing of like, look, I can't worry about fixing the whole world. I know that is a fool's errand, and looking at the whole world is enough to drive anybody crazy. So I focus on Pennytown right now, because Pennytown will make Seattle better. If Seattle's better, Washington will be better. If Washington's better, the U.S. is better, and if the U.S. is better, the world is better. I just work in small increments. So he goes to the Panopticon place, and he's like, all right, this place is not being used at all. Like, there is nothing being made here. It is absolutely destroyed. I don't know what's happening anymore. But he says, I didn't listen to the street. I didn't look to the sky. And then at that moment, Panopticon lights up saying, "Oh, I thought you might show up here." And we see it's not just a normal one. Like, this is a jumbo-sized one. And inside seems to be the guy who made them, the smarmy dude. And he starts throwing down the tentacle arms at Oliver. Oliver recognizes him. He's like, "Oh, he's the one who pitched it. He's responsible, and because I approved it, I'm responsible." And as Oliver's throwing arrows, like, they do nothing. They're just bouncing off this guy's stuff. But one of them is an explosive tipped arrow, to which the guy who made it, whose name is Aaron Zim, by the way, he grabs it and says, like, "Oh, I feel like I should let you know these are outdated. The drone is today's weapon of choice." And he throws the arrow back at Oliver, and it explodes. And as Oliver's recovering from the blast, he's like, "I know, you just wanted to protect your city. Believe it or not, I'm doing the same thing." And his tentacles pick up Oliver, and they ascend up into the sky. And we cut back to Emiko and the dog. The dog gets up, walks over to the window, and just starts howling up at the sky. And Emiko's like, "Jesus, what's wrong?" So, yeah, that's the issue. I like it. I'm trying to think if I really have anything bad to say about it, if I'm being honest. The art is a little bit flat for me as it stands right now. I don't quite like the look of Oliver they got going on. Not anything particular. I think he just feels too generic to me. He just doesn't feel like Oliver. I don't know how better to describe it. The one he reminds me of is early New 52. There was Grifter. There was Cole Cash. He reminds me of him, and that's not who I picture Oliver as. Oliver is much slimmer, much younger faced, I guess, is what I'm looking at here. Maybe they wanted, like, I guess I kind of have the Sorrentino picture in my mind anytime I'm thinking of Oliver. And this version is just a bit too buff. But beyond that, I mean, I love the themes they're playing with here. I love the idea of the Panopticon being this thing that Oliver has caused just because he's too focused on the Green Arrow stuff. The fight between the oppressed and all that against the bigger corrupt system. Always a good time for Green Arrow to explore that stuff. Yeah, it seems like it's start of a good run. I'm honestly impressed with it so far. I just hope that this is a 3-parter. This is part 2 of a 3-part thing of the Nightbirds. I hope that it doesn't really feel like a rushed ending and feels more like the beginning of a run where we can wrap up this specific arc, but I want the themes to continue onwards. So I'm going to say this one is an 8. And we hope that it improves from there. Batman Beyond number 2, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Bernard Chang. So last issue, we have Tim Drake in the future being Batman. He went to investigate some sort of camp or something that people were being taken to, and when he got in there, he was almost beaten up, but he was rescued by Barbara Gordon, of all people. So Barbara, in this issue, takes him away, starts running as guards start hosing down or just blatantly attacking the remainder of the inmates, and we see they also escape with one other person who I believe her name is Max. And as they're going down, Tim is like, "Wait a minute, the Barbara I knew would never leave people behind." And Barbara's just like, "Yeah, well, it's been a while, buddy. You don't know Barbara Gordon anymore." So as they turn a corner, they come across 3 people, 2 of which are faceless, and one of which has this horrific grin plastered on their face that says, "The Lodge is happiness. The Lodge is all." And so they dodge around them as fast as possible. And they make their way inside a building that I think is still not, like, safe. Like, it seems like they're still under watch here, but regardless, as they're let in, Tim's like, "Okay, what happened with everybody? What's going on?" She's like, "Nah, me first. Why do you look so young? I've aged decades. You've just been a few years." And he's like, "Yeah, look, first issue, just read Future's End." And she's like, "I'm not reading Future's End." He's like, "Fine. I time traveled. I thought we beat Brother Eye, and then Terry McGinnis died or whatever." Actually, I think he says that later, but regardless, at that point, she's like, "Look, the world's an awful place now. Brother Eye crushed our souls. Like, all that happened." And we see that Max has said, like, Max is basically explaining that all this stuff, it happened over the course of years. Brother Eye was infiltrating every computer network ever, and by the time they discovered him, it was too late, and the world was destroyed, more or less. So at that point, this place is place where Brother Eye does his human experiments. He's trying to hack into the human brain the same way that they do computers. And Barbara says it's a 3-step process. First, everyone with a happy expression is in stage 1. If you're worth investigating. 2, you get your face wiped. Your individuality is erased. And stage 3, you become a full-fledged cyborg. You're fully adapted into his network. So that's what they've been doing. And Max and Barbara have avoided processing, and they were hoping that he would have some tech to be able to get them out of here. And he's like, yeah, I might be able to help. But before they can do anything, Cyborg busts in through the wall. I think it's actually Cyborg, like the Cyborg version of Cyborg, and zaps Max. And Barbara just goes busting in the other direction. And Tim's like, you're just leaving her? It's like, yeah, you're our top priority. If you have the ability to free us, like, that's much more important. So they go bolting down the street, and Tim's just like, no one's left? No JLA, no nothing like that? It's like, nope, they've all been turned. However, we have heard rumors that there's been a Batman, but yeah, what are the odds of that? And Tim's like, funny story. So we cut back to a control center where we see one of the Brother Eyes is looking at a gang of people, and we see, wait a minute, hold on, that Max one, we just captured her. She has been avoiding us forever, but it turns out that she gave up herself in order to, like, catch some other guy, or let some other guy go. What's the deal with that? That we're going to need to get more information from her. So we see Barbara's like, okay, you're Batman. Terry McGinnis died in the past, and what are you waiting for? Get us out of here. Do your Batman thing. He's like, yeah, my suit kind of got fried in the last issue. I don't really have the ability, but I need to plug it in somewhere to get it going again. At least that's what I think. And Barbara's like, you don't even know how it works? Did you not test this thing? And he's like, I've had a lot on my plate, Barbara. Excuse me. So at that point, he's like, look, no one's expecting you to be fully Batman. No one's expecting you to be what McGinnis was or anything like that, or Bruce. But right now they have Max, and if that's the case, we need solutions fast. And we cut over to what they're doing with Max, and it's basically just Clockwork Orange style brainwashing. They got her eyes pried open, and Brother Eye's like, hey, I want you to picture that guy that your group was trying to save in your brain. Visualize him as best as you can. And we see Brother Eye doing whatever sort of brain mind reading stuff to get an image of Barbara and Tim. And we see that this human person standing nearby is like, oh, he's with Gordon, Commissioner Barbara Gordon. And Brother Eye's like, oh, and it's him. He's finally here. So Barbara says, yeah, we can't really find you a power source, and they're going to be looking for us. And he's going to, like, if he doesn't know something, Brother Eye is hellbent on finding it out. And the fact that you're here, he's hellbent on finding you. And then all of a sudden, the cavern, whatever they're in, starts dropping rocks, starts shaking, and in comes a giant-ass tank. And Barbara's like, okay, I'll keep him busy. Priority 1 is you get out of here alive. But before they could do anything, this black liquid starts dripping down onto Barbara, and all of a sudden she's like, oh god, it's her, and warns Tim to get out of there. She's just yanked up into the sky, and she introduces the villain here as Ink, Inque, who of course is from the Batman Beyond television series, and Ink is like, oh, to such an old dear friend, it's Ink in the flesh. So she just tosses Barbara aside and looks over to Tim, just like, all right, you're the pry. The Eye wants you. And she uses her powers, which is all like stretching her body, turning more liquid, basically staying amorphous. And as Ink is taking care of both Barbara and Tim at the same time, Barbara's like, wait a minute, hold on, you're working for the Eye? And she's like, yeah, I have my reasons. Like, what do you mean your reasons? That's literally against all of humanity. And it's like, yeah, whatever. So there's another person there, I think a cyborg type, that Tim manages to jump onto the back of and like rips out some of his circuitry out of the back of his head. He finds a plug-in that he's able to, like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, I can recharge the suit. So he plugs it into the back of the cyborg's head. All the while, Barbara's getting knocked down on her ass by Ink, doing whatever she can. She is eventually knocked out, but not before Tim manages to get the suit back online. He calls up Alfred, and he's just like, your suit's going to be less than functional. You're going to have to actually use tactics here. And he's like, yeah, all right, whatever. And so he busts in and he knocks apart Ink with a solid punch. And Alfred gives the breakdown on Ink, liquefied, shape-shifting, blah, blah, blah. And so like, okay, cool. And anything else I should know about that? And it's like, oh, well, she's also possibly the most dangerous foe that Master Terry had. It's like, oh, great. Thanks for telling me that before I started fighting. So the fight continues on, and Ink basically says, look, I have my reasons for joining Brother Eye the same way that you have your reason for doing this. Let me guess. Past trauma? And she's like, shut up. So as Tim is trying to figure out how best to deal with Ink, Alfred chimes in and says, you know, he did have some luck with water, Master Terry, every once in a while. And he's like, cool. So Tim finds a hose, turns it on. Ink just easily dodges it and says, like, all right, you're going to have to do better than that. And also watch your rear. And we see that Ink has managed to use part of her body to sneak up and choke out Tim from behind. We see Max has re-entered the scene, and they're like, Max, thank God, get over here and help us. But as Tim is now knocked out, Max is just standing over his body with a huge grin on her face, saying, oh, the lodge. Welcome to the lodge, Tim. We're going to the lodge. So with Barbara and Tim both knocked out, Ink calls it in, says the bat is ours. Brother Eye says, finally. And we zoom out from the camp up to I'm going to say meteor. It might be the moon that now has a Brother Eye logo on it. And it's just like, I don't know why he was so undetectable, and I couldn't get access into his artificial intelligence, both of which should be impossible. And now we're going to process the Batman. So that's the issue. It's okay. I guess I feel like we're rushing a bit. I don't know how best to describe it. It feels like this issue doesn't have a lot of links to the first issue. It feels like, you know, there was the cliffhanger at the end of that issue, and then we just immediately got into this. And then the first issue didn't feel like it was connected to the sneak peek at all, which also didn't feel like it was connected to the Future's End finale. So I kind of don't feel like this series has any idea what it's really doing yet. I'm sure we'll get into a groove or, you know, solidify the arc a little bit. I don't see how we can get into the next issue without Brother Eye trying to process Batman. Like, that's where we left off. It has to happen. But I don't know. It just feels very disjointed where I don't quite have a grip on what Tim's arc is yet, besides general savior of the future, like a Flash Gordon type sort of thing, where it's just vaguely doing whatever the plot needs him to do, but not having a real overarching goal. So, yeah, I guess I'll say 6.5. I guess that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. It hasn't grabbed me yet. I'm hoping that it will. It just isn't there yet. Green Lantern number 42, written by Robert Venditti, art by Billy Tan. So last issue we left off with Green Lantern Hal Jordan is in a ship along with a guy who's taken prisoner named Virgo and the guy who took him prisoner, Trapper, and they were going off to find the Green Lantern Corps to drop Trapper off when, oopsie, Mogo's gone, O is gone, whatever planet it is currently gone. So we open up this issue, and Trapper's just laughing his ass off. He's just like, ha ha ha, what, you were the greatest Green Lantern of all time? Guess that's true now, considering you're the only Green Lantern. And Hal's like, dude, shut up, I swear to God, I am not in the mood for all this right now. And his ship, the AI Darlene, comes over and just like, oh, your engine starts overheating. You may want to lower it down a little bit. And Hal's just like, Darlene, how many steering wheels do you see on this ship? He's like, none. You have a throttle. And he's just like, shut up. Just let me do the flying. So, again, Trapper just keeps on poking the bear, just being like, oh, yeah, look, whether you're running to or running from where Mogo was, it's all the same. You're just running. And Hal's like, okay, Virgo, hi, buddy. Here's the thing. I'm going to turn him over to the cops on your planet, and I honestly request that whatever punishment they have, they store him in a place where it boils during the day and freezes overnight. Do you think you can do that for me? And Virgo's like, yeah, I guess, but hey, look, if you need anything, if you got some problems going on with the Green Lantern Corps, like, my uncle is the Monarch, like, he'll help you out, man. And he's just like, no, I'm not a Green Lantern anymore, but if they are in trouble, I'm going to find out what happened. And Trapper's like, oh yeah, really? Nah, you're a hired gunman. We all know that you had a falling out with the Lanterns. You're a total on the run renegade now. And Hal's like, bro, you want to step out of those bars? I swear to God, I will fight you. And he's like, oh, I'm good, whatever. So they end up getting to Virgo's planet and they start the descent, but all of a sudden, it's hard stop. Hal's just like, the sensors aren't picking up anything. Like, there's a planet down there. We see the planet, but there are zero signs of life. Like, what in the hell is going on here? And Virgo's like, what happened? Oh, God, they're all dead. Oh, Jesus. And he starts throwing up, and Hal's just like, hey, look, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening. And the AI comes over the system like, Hal, you should probably look at this. And he's like, no, not now. I'm comforting this guy. And he's like, no, you need to look at this. And outside, we see Trapper apparently has a whole gang, and they have come to rescue him. They have surrounded Hal's ship. And Trapper's like, yeah, I was wondering how long it was going to take him, but, whatever. And Virgo's like, did they do this? Did they murder my planet? Oh, I'll kill them all. And he's just like, oh, easy. There's no way these guys did this, but I'm going to keep us safe. I'm going to take care of this. Just stay in here, okay? And Trapper's like, yeah, what are you going to do? Against my whole crew? Does this ship even have cannons? And Hal's like, no, I don't need them. And he just steps off the ship on his own, Green Lantern energy. And these goons are looking on like, what is this idiot doing? Why is he coming out here? And Hal's just like, I'm giving you guys one warning. Forget about your boss and get out of here. I got to deal with whatever happened on this planet, and it doesn't look good. And they're like, look, if we rescue our boss, we're going to be able to take a bigger part of the pot for life. So, yeah, let's do that. And they just fire a rocket at him and incinerate Hal Jordan. And they're like, yeah, that was easy. But then when the smoke clears, Hal's still standing there. He's like, all right, I gave you guys a choice. And he immediately Green Lantern summons an entire asteroid field and starts chucking rocks at them. And they, all the alarms are going off. They're like, oh, shoot guns at it. Do what you can. And Hal just makes more and more. There's nothing he can do. He's like, give it up. You can't beat me. But they keep on trying. And Hal's like, Jesus, I thought I was stubborn. So he's like, all right, enough of that. He gets rid of all the asteroids and makes one huge one like the size of a moon. And he just throws it at them. And they're like, oh my God. Oh God, what are we going to do? We're going to die. And Hal's just like, okay, I'm in control. I'm in control. All right, no one's going to die. Dial it back. And he's having trouble with it. And he yells out, dial it back. And it turns into a bunch of smaller rocks again. And they clink against the windshield. They do cause some cracks. But Hal's like, okay. Gauntlet took control for a second there. Not cool, Gauntlet, but all right. And so at that point, the goons are like, yeah, we never really liked Trapper that much anyway. We're out. Bye. And so they start to bail. But before they can, an itty bitty tiny little rock that came from the planet below collides with the ship. And all of a sudden, it starts instantaneously taking over the whole thing. The bottom halves are turned into stone. They start screaming out how they can't feel their arms, and before they even know it, they are completely frozen in stone. Their ship has completely turned as well, and another ship of one of the goons starts colliding with it. And one by one, all the ships drifting aimlessly in space starts colliding together, and they're all turned to stone. And Hal's just like, oh my God. So Trapper's wondering why the firing stopped. Obviously, they think that Hal's dead, but then Hal steps back on, and he's like, they're over. And he's like, what did you do? I'll murder you. And he's like, look, you want out? You get out. Fine. He opens up the cell. Trapper immediately tries to attack Hal. Hal just stops him with a Green Lantern construct, and he grabs hold of Trapper and says, like, look, you've seen my gauntlet in action. Did you really think that I did that? And he points out the ships, and Virgo's just like, those ships, Hal, do you know what caused that? And he's like, yes, but I don't see any reason how it could be possible. Look, I am a lantern, and when I was a lantern, I imposed the law on people here, okay? I don't have the time to do that right now, so I'm leaving this up to you. You are now the representative of your people. He has wronged you according to your people's code. However you say to see fit of what his punishment is, I will allow it. So right now, you are judge, jury, and executioner. What do you want to happen here? And he steps up and he grabs hold of Trapper, and Virgo's just like, you took away my entire home. Now they're all dead because what? I managed to be imprisoned. I was caught by a criminal who wanted to sell me. And according to our laws, you would make amends with your life. I would send you out of the airlock over to touch those ships, and you would die along with your crewmates. Or I can place you in my service until I feel that you have made amends for everything you've done. He throws Trapper down the ground, and he says, like, yep, I don't want to cause any more death today. So Hal's like, cool, awesome, and yeah, I'll keep my word. I'm going to honor your laws. But then he makes one more construct and punches Trapper in the face anyway, because he feels like he needs it. So he leans over Trapper, says, are we going to have any more problems? And Trapper's just like, and he's like, good. So sounds great. So the core is missing. This planet just got absolutely decimated by something. I want some answers. And our final page is we cut over to some planet that's been completely forgotten. We don't know even where it is. And we see a black text box saying rise over and over again. And it's getting more and more frustrated, saying, I said, listen to me, rise. And we see Black Hand has his hands turned to stone. And he says, why can't I make them rise? So I can't remember. God, what was it? It was Lights Out. That was the event where Relic was. That's where we last saw Black Hand. I remember he influenced the Source Wall. And that's what we're seeing here. Obviously, it's Source Wall stuff. I remember he influenced the Source Wall, but I can't remember if his hands got infected from it. I don't think they did, but I think in the Future's End one-shot they did. I could be mistaken there. Either way, interesting turn. I'm curious to see how any of this happened, what's going to happen next, what the game plan here is. Yeah, it's well written as what we got now. I still think this doesn't feel like it necessarily needed to be a renegade Hal Jordan. I don't feel like we really did anything with that yet. But as for just a Green Lantern story, yeah, I like it. I like the implication that this is spinning off of what has previously been established in the run, and it's just as much its own thing. So I'm going to say this is I'll say 7.5. It's close to an 8. It's not quite squeaking up there, but it's still very good, and we'll see where we go from here. Bizarro number 2, written by Heath Corson, art by Gustavo Duarte. So last issue we left off with a used car salesman possessing what he believes is the godlike power of the ancient Egyptian gods, because he's got a whole King Tut theme, and he hypnotizes the entire town of Smallville to come buy his cars, including Jimmy Olsen. Also, Bizarro's on a road trip with Jimmy Olsen to Canada. So Bizarro basically gives that as a rundown via some doodles on a placemat, and then we pick up with where we're at. And Bizarro's like, hey, you let those people go, Tut. And again, I'm not going to be doing the Bizarro anti-speak as much as I can help it. So Tut's like, oh, you'll never get past my powers. And he starts throwing cars at Bizarro. Bizarro just starts using his powers. He bashes one of them, uses heat breath on another. And we see King Tut's firing off like laser beams into the sky. The crowd's like, ooh, very pretty. But then Bizarro gets hit, and he ends up hitting another car. So Bizarro tells Cullen, the Chupacabra, hey, go save Jimmy. I'm going to take care of this guy. So all the rest of the people who are hypnotized grab hold of Bizarro, and he's like, what? Get off me. But King Tut is like, haha, my liquidation sale will not be stopped. So as Jimmy is about to sign a horrible contract for extra financing, we see that Cullen comes up and just bites him on the head, and that's enough for him to snap out of the hypnotizing. And he's like, oh, what happened to Bizarro? And Bizarro starts busting out the crowd. Jimmy starts taking picture. He's like, oh, this is exactly what I need for my book. This is fantastic. Look at him. He's actually doing things, heroic looking things. So as the daughter of Tut is trying to still sell this car, Jimmy tells Cullen, hey, get her out of it too, wake her up. And so he bites her head, and she's like, what? Oh God, I'm wearing the costume, aren't I? So at that point, Bizarro starts going after Tut a bit more intensely. And Jimmy yells over, hey, Bizarro, just make sure he doesn't hypnotize you. We can't deal with you being hypnotized. And he's like, that's a great idea. I'll use Bizarro's super hypnosis. And Bizarro just goes up next to Tut and says, like, I'm going to say his actual thing of, you am so awake. And he's like, what? No, I'm getting sleepy. And Bizarro says, when I snap my fingers, you'll act like a chicken. And he snaps, and Tut now just acts like a chicken. And so they get the rod that he was using. Jimmy snaps it. And as the sun rises, all of Smallville's like, why are we in a used car lot in our pajamas? So very quick cuts here. The daughter apparently decided to take over as head of the company because her father's indisposed. She thanks them for freeing the city by giving them some medals from crushing up the cars that were completely destroyed. They give Jimmy a new convertible, and then they take off. And then literally, like, possibly later that day, we see that she's gotten the staff back and says, I'm so sorry for what they did to you, father. I recognize my place now as Queen Tut, and I will fight to destroy Bizarro. Her entire thing was she didn't want to do any of this, but, you know, whatever. So we get a couple of guest artists actually coming up here, but Jimmy and Bizarro take off in the convertible. They have to get some supplies before they go. So they go to Lexmart, which is just a general grocery store. Bizarro starts knocking over some shelves, and he's like, oh, God, you're causing so much property damage. And as they've got all their stuff, it's just like, all right, let's hit the road. So they end up going to Gotham, and they stop for some bat dogs, which Jimmy is opposed to because he hates Gotham. He's like, you never know who you're going to run into here. They actually end up running into Riddler, and Riddler's like, hey, you didn't see me. And then he just leaves. And is like, all right, that's weird. But then all of a sudden, Bizarro gets smacked in the back of the head by a batarang, which we get the guest artist of Kelly Jones doing the art there. We then go to Central City, and they're trying to read a map, trying to figure out where it's direction to go. Apparently Bizarro's been reading the map, and Jimmy thinks that he knows the difference of like turn left, turn right, to just flip that in his head. However, he doesn't know if that's actually how Bizarro speak works, and then turns out that there was a sign that said dead end, and Bizarro said open road, which obviously did not help Jimmy. But then as Bizarro's gesturing wildly, he ends up punching Flash in the face, and we get Francis Manapul art on that one. So, a couple more shots. Starling City, by the way, Bizarro's wearing a shirt that says, you have failed this city, with arrows on it. Class act, love it. Chicago, Iron Heights, somewhere in Louisiana where Swamp Thing is, question marks representing Gorilla City. And then as they're driving down the road, we see that mystery vehicle is still following them, saying, oh, we've got them in our sights. Are we clear to engage? And it's like, yeah, no, look at all the chaos they caused back in Smallville. Do it. Take them out. So as they're about to go up to the convertible, Jimmy's like, hey, that sedan's been following us for hours. I think it might be something. And Bizarro's upset because he's not getting any matches on Tinder. So Jimmy's like, hey, how about we get crazy and ditch these jokers? You got any ideas? And Burrow's like, yeah. And he uses his heat breath to cause an inferno behind them. As the car swerves about on the road, they get out of the inferno, they look around. Bizarro's nowhere to be seen, and they're like, well, he must just be hiding somewhere. We got to find him out. And turns out Bizarro lifted up the car into the air. And it's just like, all right, well, maybe we need to lay low for a little bit until these guys are off our trail. So they go to an old Western ghost town, and they're dressed up in Western gear, which apparently was also bought at Lexmart. And Bizarro hears the sound of a shotgun, and then there's a shotgun aimed at the side of his head, and he's like, oh, I was right. And it turns out it's, I believe, the sheriff. No, it was a bounty hunter named Chastity Hex. And he's just like, well, as long as your name isn't Jeremiah Blackhurst, then I don't have a problem with you. And they're like, nope, that's not us. Anyway, Jimmy, Bizarro, all that stuff. And as they are standing in town, Hex explains, like, yeah, I heard that Blackhurst was in this town, and I'm hunting down for him, but you know, there's literally no one else here. It's just us three. And Bizarro's like, well, what about all the ghosts? And he's like, no, ghost town doesn't actually mean ghosts. It means that it's an abandoned town. But as soon as the sun sets, we see that all the lights come on and ghosts start walking about. So yeah, that's the issue. I sound unenthused. I recognize that. But it's only because recapping a book like this literally sucks all the joy out of it, because it is a joy to read. It is a very fun book. Like, the art style really sells it, and it does have good comedic beats. It's just really hard to recap because the plot's the least interesting part. What they're actually doing doesn't matter. It's all about how the story is told and how Bizarro is like reacting to certain things and how he's messing stuff up and then fixing it later. That's where the fun comes out of it. So I will suggest reading it. I will give it a higher rating than you're probably expecting. I'm going to say 7.5. It's very good. I would say the only thing holding it back from an 8 is that I still do want there to be a story that I care about, and it seems like this one's going to be a lot more episodic. Like, we're going to hit a place, we're going to have Bizarro doing a couple things, and then we're going to move on to whatever the next place is. And that's fine for a road trip story. That's almost exactly what I expect, but it is not conducive to a story unless, like, the Jimmy Bizarro relationship is really what it's going to be, and it doesn't seem like we're leaning too heavily on that yet. So yeah, 7.5, hoping for more, but honestly, I'm happy with what we got. Bat-Mite number 2, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Corin, Howell. So last issue we had Hawkman was taken prisoner and is going to be used in a mind swap with this 100-year-old woman, and Bat-Mite is the only one who, I guess, can stop this. So we see Bat-Mite is pacing in the cell with Hawkman, just like, okay, this is it. Time to step up. I gotta be able to save Hawkman here and from being swapped with this 100-year-old brain. And we see on TV monitors behind the villain, I don't even know if she has a name, might have been last issue, is like, oh yeah, I'm over 200 years old. I knew the Frankensteins. Like, that's my whole thing. And she then goes off specifically on how Victor is a clumsy lover, and Bat-Mite's like, I don't want to hear any of that. Anyway, here's the problem. Hawkman, not a lot of people even know who you are, so how would I be able to help you best here? And so he just starts running through these ideas of like, okay, I have to be able to get Hawkman out of here first, and then I have to fix him. I have to make him a more relatable, more marketable hero. And because Hawkman's completely unconscious, Bat-Mite just nods his head for him and is just like, okay, cool, I've got an idea. And he teleports out of the room, to which the villain's just like, what? Wait, what? And we see him grab Hawkman's mace and, I guess, shield? I don't remember. Maybe it's just armor in general, but regardless, he teleports back in, and he's like, all right, here's your mace and your shield, and oh god, look at all that body hair. I don't want to deal with any of that, but whatever, we'll deal. And so he, I guess, teleports Hawkman back out, and I say that only because he's out of the chains, but they don't show where he goes, and the person's just like, wait a minute, hold on, what have you done? Where is it? But they still seem to be in the cell on the next page because the TVs are still looking at them. So either way, he runs through a few options in his head, like Golden Age Hawkman, a Batman version of Hawkman, one that's more hawk than man. And he's like, no, this doesn't work. I got to reach all the way back into my closet of tricks. And he's like, oh yes, of course. Instead of the Savage Hawkman, I'll do Hawkman the Savage. And he changes Hawkman into the most 90s thing you've ever seen, I guess is the best way to say it. Like, he's got a mace for a fist, and he's got tattoos of flames and skulls and stuff. And he's like, all right, I think this is going to work. This is going to be super awesome. And the villain is just like, all right, I don't know how you did that, but this is not going to stand tolerated. So in comes some more scientists who, they've got a little gas thing that knocked Bat-Mite out last issue. And he's like, haha, well, that's not going to work again. And then they spray it. And he's like, oh, wait, yes, it will. So he passes out. And the villain walks in and says, all right, well, this isn't ideal, but I can still work with what I got. But as for the little mite creature, screw it. He's not worth the effort. Kill him. Get rid of him. So the scientists take Bat-Mite's body out, and they're like, okay, so what? We bury him alive? And it's like, nah, it's too much work. It's like, all right, shoot him, knife him. What are we doing here? And he's like, look, I signed up for like a really basic job. I have a degree in philosophy, and that's clearly not doing a lot for me here, but I did not sign up for this kind of work. So they just walk over to the cliffside and throw Bat-Mite's body into the sea. We then see inside, the doctor, the villain, is strapped to a table along with Hawkman. The nurse assistant's like, you sure about this? Even though it's a man's body? And it's like, whatever, I'll deal. Our society is built for the young, and talent means nothing if you're not young and fresh and new. So they throw the lever, and the brain swap begins. We then get a little montage of Bat-Mite waking up underwater, and he's like, I was told that I had to pay for my crimes. Either way, I'd be gone. And it's a whole thing where he's just being superly overly dramatic for no reason. And then a shark comes up and is about to eat him, and he just punches it in the nose, swims up to the surface, and he's like, oh, this would be a good death, but not really all that good, because death kind of sucks no matter what. And as he makes his way up to the cliff face, he's like, oh, my lungs are on fire. This is agony. Why am I even climbing? I'm just going to teleport. And so he teleports up to the top of the cliff, now in a changed outfit to look like the Dark Knight Returns. And he says, the Dark Mite returns. And so he makes his way over to the door of the place, and he is like, all right, if I had any sense, I'd walk away, but I gotta go save Hawkman. However, obviously it's too late. The brain swap has happened, and the villain is fighting using Hawkman's body. Like, you should be dead. What in the hell are you doing here? So she keeps throwing punches in Hawkman's body. Bat-Mite's like, oh, wait, hold on. If Hawkman's already gone, does that mean I can take his spot in the Justice League? And he bats like big eyelashes at Hawkman, just like, no, shut up. I am so sick of you talking now. And he manages to pull out a shield from nowhere to block Hawkman's mace. Okay, the scientists run out with the gas gun again, and Bat-Mite's like, oh, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 4 times, shut up. And so he bashes their heads together, knocks them out. He's got the gas gun now, and he's like, all right, I've got an idea what I can do here. So infuriated, the villain flies over to Bat-Mite, and Batman's like, all right, I have to take you down without injury, so here's my plan. And he gasses Hawkman. Hawkman can't see where he's flying, or she's flying, however you want to call it, and flies into the building and collapses to the ground, getting knocked out. And Batman's like, see, without injury. I mean, as long as you don't count the blatant shoulder injury that is absolutely busted up there. Oh well. So they get him back inside, ready to do the mind swap back, and the nurse is like, I'm telling you, it's irreversible. I can't possibly do it. And Bat-Mite's like, okay, teleports the nurse away, counts to 30, teleports back. She's covered in seaweed, like, I could have drowned. And it's like, yeah, you could have. Now, how about you tell me how to reverse it? And then we just cut to some time later where Hawkman has his mind back. He's letting all the prisoners out of their cells. And they're like, hey, where was that little bat kid? Like, what happened to that? And Hawkman's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I woke up here before they could do anything to me, and I saved you all. That's what happened. I don't know what you're talking about, bat kid. And he's like, are you sure about that? And Hawkman's like, well, my shoulder does really hurt. That, now that you mention it, that is a bit weird. So Hawkman flies out free, and Bat-Mite's like, all right, well, I had to undo my 90ification, but I did give you that full body wax. And if you look, all of his chest hair is actually gone. So he's like, yeah, well, I couldn't, her name is Doc Trauma. That's right. Forgot about that. So at that point, all the prisoners are escaping, and one of them's just like, no, I'm serious. There was a kid in a bat suit. Maybe it was Batman's sidekick. And Bat-Mite overhears this and it's like, sidekick? I'll have you know I made Batman. And they're like, oh, you're real? Okay. I doubt it. I don't think you made Batman. And he's just like, what? No, you think that Hawkman was responsible for fixing all this? Nah, it was me. I did it. And the guy's like, by the way, as far as I can tell, the guy's name is Weed. He looks like a stoner type. And I think the other one's name is Reagan, who seems to be some sort of a cop or something like that, or at least a little more serious. But he introduced himself as Bat-Mite, and he's like, yeah, I'm undercover. I keep it down on the sly. I don't like to be noticed that much. I'm a secret weapon. It's just like, yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, the agency is probably worried about me. I gotta go get out of here. So at that point, Batman's like, okay, I can take you home. Just teleports him back home. And they're like, oh, cool. Well, bye. And they start leaving, and he's like, oh, yeah, you know, I don't have a home. And they're like, oh, that's awful. And they just keep walking. And then Batman's just like, yeah, I'm totally lonely. Nowhere to go. And finally, Weed's like, hey, look, you always said you wanted a cat. Maybe we could just switch cat to bat. And Reagan's just like, Fine, all right, he can stay one night, just one. And Bat-Mite's like, yes, awesome. We're going to have a dance party and poker and cigars. And as they make their way into the house, we see somebody is watching from a monitor who says, I don't know who the hell this Bat-Mite is, but it seems that he is one of the misguided souls pushing towards advancement in society. Screw him. So says Gridlock. And that's the book. Okay. I feel like the art got a little bit more to me on this issue, not in a good way. Like, I was a bit more disappointed by the art as this issue continued. And it's not so much that it's bad, it's that it feels non-detailed to the point where it feels like it was blown up from a smaller version, if that makes sense. It feels like this was maybe digest sized and then it just got blown up, and it doesn't feel good to look at it on this scale. And then writing wise, I mean, it's slightly better than Harley in terms of like humor landing, but even then it's iffy. I think Bat-Mite's going to be one of those ones that's a mercy killing for me when we hit the 6th issue, but as for now, I'm going to say it's a 6. It's not awful, it's not beneath the middle mark of a 5, but it is not great either, so I'll just say a 6. The Omega Man number 2, written by Tom King, art by Barnaby Bagenda. So last issue, we had the Omega Men just taking out a whole bunch of Imperial people. It's a whole big thing. And the ending reveal is that Kyle Rayner is currently their prisoner, ? That they are hauling with them on their travels. So we open up on the planet of Egyptu, and we see that there is a leader of that town who is like the governor. He's preparing his opening statement to the viceroys. The viceroy's ship comes down, and he's like, oh, it's horrible circumstances, so sad that I'll figure it out. And as the viceroy comes out, he starts to speak, and the viceroy just cuts him off saying like, do you have tea? I want tea. Let's go ahead and do tea, and let's have it here by my ship that I've parked right next to us. What better way to start a nice day than having a nice cup of tea? And we see over top of montage of Kyle having surgery performed on him while he's unconscious. They cut open his neck, implant a device inside, and then seal him back up again. And all the Omega Men are watching this happen. But the narration over top is that the viceroys come to the planet of Egyptu saying, look, 39 of my men were killed by the Omega Men. And as such, we come and we have negotiated with Egyptu, and because any of our soldiers that are killed in the line of duty must be restituted at 100-to-1 rate. So 3,900 of your people must be killed. And the governor's just like, well, the Omega Men are not from Egyptu. And he's like, well, one of them is. Primus is. And he's like, well, yes, Primus, but we don't really talk about Primus. And it's just like, regardless, 3,900 people. And he's just like, well, all right, I was wondering if maybe we could negotiate that number at all. And Viceroy's just like, all right, well, because we have a long and storied friendship, I believe I could bring that number down to 3,000. And the governor's just like, I was thinking more of just shy of 2,000, half of the original number. And I have all the people picked out. I can get them to you right now. We can do that immediately. And the Viceroy's just like, I'm sorry. You think you get to pick? I did not pick which of my men got killed. Why would you get to pick which ones of your men got killed? How about this? I'll offer you 2 options. 1, 4,000 of your people are killed right now, but you get to pick who they are. Or I will, no, you're right. 4,000 of your men get killed. You get to pick. Or 1,800, even less than what you were saying before, but I get to pick them. Make your pick. And he's just like, 4,000. We'll do the 4,000. So at that point, he's just like, yes, I also have one other request. The pilot of my ship, he is of Shang-Gralin descent, and therefore he needs a place to pray. And I was like, yes, we have a temple. He could totally go and check that out. So at that point, he's just like, yes, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you out. After all, you must be out collecting your men now. So we then cut over to Kyle, who's recovering on the couch, and he's just saying the Lord's Prayer to himself, and he's grasping the crucifix around his neck. Meanwhile, out in Ojibtu, people are being rounded up. They're just reading off a list of names, saying, like, if your name is called, report to the stadium immediately. And they just start listing off name after name. People are like, what did I do? What's my crime? What's my crime? And they're like, go. Yeah, go. You got to come on now. And more people are getting rounded up. We see Primus inside is talking to Kyle, just like, hey, look, I need to talk to you. I need you to not get upset. We put a bomb in your neck. And if you don't go along with whatever we're doing, we're going to blow it up. And I need you to understand that the Citadel has ordered 4,000 men to be killed in just a few hours. And when the time comes, I'm going to need your full cooperation. And Kyle tries throwing a punch. He misses. He's still recovering from the operation. He's like, listen, you need your strength now, and then we'll get going later. And Kyle's like, I'm not moving anywhere. He's just like, yeah, of course you're not. You still think like you're a Lantern, but you're not. You don't have your ring. The Lantern is dead. You're an Omega Man now. So we cut over to the temple that the Viceroy was promised earlier for his pilot, and we see that Brute, the Omega Man, is given entrance by some guards to the temple, and they recognize him as Charisnar, and he says, no, there is no Charisnar. I am only Brute now. And as he enters into the temple, the pilot recognizes him and says, oh, Charisnar, and he's just like, hey, I don't want you to be upset. You are being forgiven. I am forgiving you for working with the Viceroy, for piloting his ship for the Citadel. And then Brute beats the ever-loving hell out of him, killing him in this temple and stealing his robes. And he's like, all right, Primus, the prayers have been said and the prayers have been answered. So we see that a young child is being rounded up for the sacrifice, I guess you would call it. And as he's being brought away, Primus is inside being like, this is my planet. They are simple people. They mainly just survive by serving Citadel tourists who come here for the beach and the sun and the sand and all that. And I have tried so damn hard to tell my people that if we just stand, if we stop bowing to these people and doing all of the stuff they request of us, if we stand and peaceful and proper and we don't kill, we just stand, then we would win. We would immediately win, but they just won't do it. And Kyle's like, if you let me go, I can save him. And he's just like, really? How are you going to do that? You don't have your ring. And he's like, I don't need a ring. And he's just like, oh, Kyle, I get it. Like, that. Why do you think I'm still here? Like, you know, we risk everything we have in order to get the Viceroy to show up and collect his pay. I get you think we're monsters, but you're fighting the same Citadel that we're fighting right now. And Kyle's like, look, I'm not about your war, Citadel, Omega Man, whatever. It's about the people right now. And Primus is like, we're not monsters. I just want you to know that. We're going to save everyone. And we see that Brute has made his way over to the Viceroy's ship, and he's wearing the pilot's robes. It's all in alien speak, so we can't tell what it is, but clearly one of the guards is like, you're not the guy. And Brute's like, I don't know I'm wearing the robes. I don't know what you're talking about. And then underneath the robes, it turns out that Tigor is there, so he launches out. He starts attacking the guards, just slashing at their throats. Doc, the robot, who was the one who did some surgery on Kyle, has scraps inside of his stomach containment unit. She pops out, starts shooting people as well. And as the Viceroy and the Governor are standing over the stadium, looking out, and they're like, oh, yes, there's quite a good amount of people. I hope the dinner is served soon. The Governor gets a word from an aide, and then the Governor relates it over to the Viceroy, saying, Viceroy, I don't quite know how to tell you this, but probably something you should know. And in the background, we see his ship taking off. So Primus tells Kyle, all right, we got to get up. Let's go. And Kyle's like, go to hell. And he's like, hey, remember the watch. Remember the bomb we put in your neck. If you got to get up or I will kill you. And if you're dead, how are you going to help anyone? And they make their way out of the city. They make their way out of the room on top of a skyscraper. And a ladder descends. They're going up into the Viceroy's ship. And Kyle's like, you said we would save everyone. And he's like, yeah, I did. So as the ship flies off planet, we see the stadium. The pistols are drawn. They're all getting cocked. And one by one, people just start getting killed in this stadium. And Kyle is completely broken. He's like, you said we would save them. I could have saved them. And Primus is like, look, I'm sorry. I had to keep that from you. I know you love to sacrifice yourself, but frankly, we couldn't have that happen this early on. All right, we need you to be around. You're an Omega Man now, and you need to be part of this for the greater victory. You're going to be a part of that. And this 4,000 bodies, he got that. Good for him. We got our ship, good for us. But this is what it takes to start down the bigger path. So we see Doc is looking over Kyle's wound on his neck, and he's like, yeah, just keep the dressing on it, you'll be fine. And Kyle asks, hey, Doc, do you see yourself as an Omega Man? And he's like, yeah, of course, proudly, and so are you. And we just a single panel of all of the bodies, their skulls, brains leaking out onto the ground. It's a horrific sight. And Doc says, look, to be an Omega Man, it doesn't really take much. You just need to know that there is a power in heaven, or at the very least, when you look up there, you hope that there is. And our final 9-panel grid is Kyle standing at a mirror. He undoes his bandages on his neck. This wound starts leaking blood a bit. He takes his finger to it while saying the Green Lantern Oath, and the Omega symbol that is on his chest, he adds a top and bottom line to turn it into a Green Lantern symbol made out of his own blood. When I was reading this book the first time through, I got to that 9-panel grid there at the end. Hell, I got to reveal the sacrifice pit as well, and I was like, oh, it's that kind of book. And then I couldn't stop reading. I love this book. I mean, like, out of the DC YOU, I'd say there are 2 major successes that I've hit so far. There might be some that I didn't read that I'll turn up that I love later. But right now, Omega Man and Prez. Omega Man is wildly different than Prez, but it hits on a lot of the same themes. And that's something that I really appreciate here, is that while there are so many books in the DCU that are hitting on these themes of the smaller, scrappy, like, I don't even know how to describe the smaller group standing up to the systemic pressure and taking on the system as a whole. A lot of books are doing that. But a lot of them feel like they're pulling punches. Like they still can't say the quiet part out loud. Omega Man is one of those books where it's like, no, murder is going to happen and the only way to overcome it is through blood. And I'm like, God damn. So yeah, it's a great book. I'm going to say 8.5 for this issue. I'm literally hedging my points back to an 8.5 because I know later on we get to a 10. So wait for that. But yeah, this is a fantastic issue. Definitely check it out. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this July 1st, 2015. And I guess that's technically it for episode 200. I mean, glad you were here. Glad we could celebrate this together. Only 50 more episodes left. Can you believe that? This was the navel gazing I was talking about at the beginning of the episode that I didn't want to do, but like 50 episodes left. That's crazy. That's less than a year. I know that because there's 52 weeks in a year, as DC will not stop reminding me. But like, yeah, that's in less than a year, this show will be done. And what will I do then? I might actually have to do my job. Dear God. I hope not. That's going to be disappointing. Anyway, let's look at the comics we got coming out next week. So next week, in alphabetical order, we have All-Star Section 8, Batman, Batman/Superman, Catwoman, Constantine the Hellblazer, Earth 2 Society, Gotham Academy, Justice League of America, Justice League United, that's strange, I feel like I haven't seen that one in like 5 months, New Suicide Squad, Red Hood/Arsenal, and Starfire. Just to be clear, Red Hood/Arsenal is a different title than Starfire. They were all on a team together, now they're not, but they are still sharing a week. So yeah, that's all that's coming out. Really don't have anything big to say about any of them. Justice League of America, I think, is a double size issue. I believe it's at least extra length, maybe not double size, but everything else, I mean, it's completely standard as far as I'm aware. So yeah, be sure to check out some of those if you're interested at all. I'm sure Batman is usually the one most people go for. So that one, I maybe will not do first next time. I'm going to make you sit through a bunch of the episode before I talk about What's going on with Jim Gordon as Batman? Yeah, you don't even know. Okay, yeah, it's getting late. I have to have this up in about like 8 hours time. So let's get through the contractual stuff. Hey, do you want to tell me how wrong I am? Do you want to tell me how right I am? Well, if you have any comments on any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, and we could all go ahead and hit them up in the comment section down below the YouTube video, if that's how you're watching it, or if you're listening on the audio feed several weeks later than you should be, because I am horrible at putting up the audio feed ones, check the description, check the show notes, whatever you want to call it. We have multiple places, such as a Discord, a subreddit, and a Patreon that you can go ahead and post to your heart's content. I'll be honest, I haven't checked the subreddit in probably about 6 months, so apologies if you've been reaching out on that. I don't think you have been, but if you have, try one of the other methods. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however you consume this podcast. Be sure to interact with it positively, because positivity makes the world go round, and yeah, I don't have anything else on that. I kind of want to like undercut it with something snarky, but no. Let's be earnest. Let's actually say positivity makes the world go round and own up to it. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. I really don't know how to transition out of that, so I'll just say, as always, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.